My name is Jean de Dieu Hakizimana. For years, I had many questions, many voices that our government don't hear us, don't recognize our skills, don't recognize us, this is our home. Is it really government of Canada hear us? Or we are you? As my colleague said, is it CIDA respect where we come from? Always I get frustrated when somebody honor or own my information where I come from and is expert of my country, is expert of my village. When we request our country, Canada, can you hear me? I know better than that person what I get. Here we are requesting that how we can ownership information. Is it possible? Or someone in Ottawa has made a decision how it should be, and we have to follow. Development is all of us we are looking for. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Sean. Why don't we flip ahead to the next question, which is really, I mean, exactly what Jean has said, which is a message. And we wanted to hear from as many people in this room as possible. Mohammed, could you just flip that? Yeah, that's great. So we wanted to ask the question, what is your message to the diaspora, to international NGOs, universities, funders, the Canadian public, and the government of Canada? So this intentionally asking you to consider all of these different players in the way that diaspora are supported or enabled, as James Bosuti-Sam was mentioning earlier. So we're really interested in what message do you have and to who? And if we could hear from us, if this question resonates at all, because you see, it's not, we don't want to necessarily just focus on CEDA. Yes, and we were really disappointed that they weren't here tonight. But there are other players in this, in international development, that we feel want to hear what the diasporic perspective is. So yes, right here, and then down front. Go ahead.
Okay, my name is Leon. I'm an SFU student in International Studies and Anthropology. And I'm just listening to the conversation. I'm thinking about what Dr. Dawson said, and also this idea of, I see that we still continue on this divide of this us and we, and us being us here, we, sorry, them, us and them being the government. And it's true, we speak, we speak in this way, and if we continue to speak in this way, I mean, of course, the government has resources, money, and all the things we want to give them that they have, or maybe we're still part of that government. But if we just, I know that a lot of us that are sitting here, we're already doing something about it. We're not just speaking this us and them in terms of waiting for them, waiting for a response. I know a lot of people I have talked to here and in other sessions that they're already doing something about it. So it's this idea of perhaps expecting the government to do something which, in my view, they do something, but maybe they do very little. And maybe it is because a lot of the interests are in conflict. And maybe it is because we have to ask how government works. But I would say that's still a different story. I think it's about, as a diaspora, maybe even as people being here, we need to start asking ourselves the question of, I'm first speaking to diaspora, is basically what got us here. And that's, I know for some of us, we were just able to be here, you know, had a good chance. But for some of us, it was a lot of other things that are related to injustice, that are related to conditions that maybe we have found here that we are not able to find back home. And then we need to start asking how much the society in which we live, that place being Canada, contributes to those conditions or those lack of conditions. And then we can start asking ourselves what we can do about them since we're here already. Because, and I say this because, for instance, we are expecting on the Department of Foreign Affairs to do something about it. And we all know, or we should know, that the Department of Foreign Affairs acts first based on Canadian interest and then others. And this is why it's such a small place. And that doesn't mean that they won't support the development in other places, but they will always prioritize Canadian interests. I'm not saying this is good, I'm not saying this is bad, but we should be aware of this. We should also be aware that if racism, segmentation, marginalization, exclusion got us here in the first place, then if we find it here, we need to start doing something about it here while working also on fixing these things back home and on helping towards these things. And we should also be very careful about this position of experts that we may adopt a lot of times. Not because we're NGOs, not because we're universities, not because we're funders, not because we're public, and not because we're a government, it means that we're experts. And of course, this doesn't mean that we aren't either. And the last thing I want to say is very true, this self-esteem problem that I would say a lot of immigrants face. And perhaps I would say this is one of the biggest challenges that we need to think, not as coming from outside, as people coming from other countries, as diasporic, but also as people living here, and be aware that as we face this, but also as other people face it, it's something that we need to tell others about. And it's also something that we perhaps need to find ways to change this, because it is true. Perhaps this would be our main problem. What keeps us from doing more is definitely that our self-esteem is down. And why? Why do we believe? Why do we still speak in this us and them? And when we can say policy, we can say a lot of a lot of these points that were raised in the report that Professor Sam was mentioning before. But we need to ask why, and we will find out that truly there's no reason. There are barriers, but it is for us to really start doing and influencing and talking to each other. So this is what I would say. This would be my message.
Great, thank you. Okay, so how about I go around like this, and if you can be really brief, we'll have time for more people. So Carol, and then who had their hands up over here? Right here, here, and here, okay? And then behind you. So we'll start here, Carol.
Thank you. My name is Carol Magambo. I work at SFU, and I'll just be brief. I would like to say that development cannot continue in the way it's been happening. I find that in order to enrich the development process, there's need to engage not only Canadians, but to include the diaspora. The diaspora will do one thing that is lacking within the development quadrant, and that is their voices, their understanding. And also, development cannot be done without the inclusion of Canadians. So there's a need for everybody to be included in understanding, in moving ahead and forging, as I would say, global citizens.
Thank you very much. And over here, yes, Henry.
Thank you. I just want
would you introduce yourself? Sorry.
Oh, sorry. My name is Henry Mwandimere.
Okay.
I'm with the Baobab Consulting. I just like to contribute to the question exposed. This is regarding the what our message should be to all of us. I, for one, I think I see a lack of knowledge due to lack of understanding history. For me, first and foremost, we should try to understand how we got to where we are today. It didn't happen overnight. It happened more than 400 years ago. So once we understand that, then I think we'll be in a better position to identify appropriate solutions to solve the problems of the diaspora and of developing countries. First of all, I think we must understand why 20% of the world population consumes 80% of the resources on Earth. And they continue to consume 30% of what, over 30% of what the planet has to offer. We need to understand that. For development, or for developing countries, there are, I think, 4 major issues. The first one is debt. The second one is trade. And the third one is privatization. These have implications on the capacity of developing countries to develop, because they reduce their capacity. These 3 thrusts are promoted by what is called the Washington Consensus. They promote capital liberalization, that's flow of money, and these are implications for development. And also trade liberalization, which has implications for these countries trying to raise capital for development. So what I like to propose is that, all of us should educate ourselves of what we are dealing with. Then we can request our government, Canadian government, to do something about, one, this overhang of foreign debt, international debt, should be forgiven unconditionally. Because right now there are conditions laid down for debt forgiving. I think it's not appropriate. Because all these debts were acquired, for me, illegally by developing countries. Because under the Versailles Treaty, the debts incurred by colonial government cannot be transferred to independent countries. So this, for me, is illegal. So these debts should be forgiven unconditionally. Also, change the tax system. Most of the taxes are raised on consumption and wages. And it's only the poor who are affected by this. Because I'm a poor guy, I'm buying same stuff that the rich guys buy from the grocery store, I'm a disadvantage. I'm not going to develop. Also, the need for support for agrarian reform. Our development programs go to developing countries, they disrupt the status quo of the farmers, and farmers that dispossess of their land. I think there's need for land to be restored back to the farmers. This is the sort of land reform, or agrarian reform. Finally, I think we should end the privatization. I mean, the commons has been sort of abandoned. Originally, like in Africa, land was regarded as a common, where people went to graze or plant and so forth. They were given land, access to land, depending on their family needs. But now with privatization, the poor are disadvantaged. They have no land. Once you give them the title to land, they sell the land, because that's, for them, that's the only means that they can obtain money from the bank on collateral basis. So all these, I think, we must educate ourselves on what these imply for development and what these implications are for us as diaspora to support development in our countries of attachment. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you.